The biting wind carried the scent of impending rain as Katherine Rose trudged up the overgrown path toward what was supposedly now her property. Her thin woolen dress offered little protection against the chill, the neckline worn low from years of use, exposing the delicate skin of her collarbone to the harsh elements. At 23, Katherine's once vibrant beauty remained undimmed despite the hardships life had heaped upon her shoulders. Her golden hair, pulled back in a simple braid, caught the meager sunlight filtering through the gray clouds. The dress that had once belonged to her mother hung loosely on her slender frame, yet still traced the gentle curves of her figure. The hem was frayed, patched multiple times with whatever scraps of fabric she could salvage, much like she had tried to patch together her broken life. 6 months had passed since the fever took her husband. 3 months since little Thomas, her 5-year-old son, stopped asking when his father would return. The plague had swept through their village with merciless efficiency, claiming not only her husband, but her parents as well. In the span of a fortnight, Katherine had gone from a contented wife and mother to a widow struggling to keep herself and her son fed. Then came the letter, delivered by a stern-faced man with official seals and documents. An elderly great-aunt, whom Katherine had met only once as a child, had passed away. The woman, apparently having no closer relatives, had left Katherine her home and land, such as it was. "Look, Mama, look." Thomas darted ahead, his small boots kicking up dirt as he ran. Despite everything, he maintained the boundless energy of youth. His dark curls bounced with each step, reminding Katherine painfully of his father. "Not too far ahead, Thomas," she called, clutching the deed papers tightly in her hand. "We do not know this place yet." The cottage came into view as they rounded a bend in the path. Katherine's heart sank. It was little more than a ruin, one wall partially collapsed, the thatched roof full of holes, windows either broken or missing entirely. The garden surrounding it was wild and overgrown, choked with weeds. "Is this our home now?" Thomas asked, his initial enthusiasm dimming as he took in the dilapidated structure. Katherine forced a smile. "It will be, with some work. Your great-great-aunt Eliza left it for us." She knelt beside him, adjusting his worn cap. "It is ours, Thomas. No one can take it from us." The inside of the cottage was no better than the exterior. Dust covered every surface, and there were signs that small animals had made their homes in the corners. A table sat in the center of the main room, its surface covered with tarnished pewter plates and cups. A single bed frame stood against one wall, its straw mattress long since rotted away. An old trunk sat unopened in one corner. "It is not much," Katherine murmured, more to herself than to Thomas. "But it is something." They spent that first night huddled together on a pile of blankets Katherine had brought, the wind whistling through the holes in the roof. Thomas slept soundly, exhausted from the journey and the excitement of exploring their new home. Katherine, however, lay awake, wondering if she had made a terrible mistake accepting this inheritance. Perhaps they would have been better off staying in the village, living on charity and pity. The next morning, Katherine began the overwhelming task of making the cottage habitable. She started by sweeping out the dust and debris, while Thomas played outside in the overgrown garden.
"Mana, Nana."
"Come quick." Katherine dropped her broom and rushed outside, heart pounding. She found Thomas standing at the edge of what appeared to be a small stone circle half hidden by tall grass. "What is it, Thomas? Are you hurt?" He shook his head, pointing excitedly. "I found a well, Mama. Look." Indeed, partially obscured by years of neglect, was an old stone well. Its stones were moss-covered, and a rotted wooden cover lay askew across the top. "Be careful, Thomas. Stay back from it," Katherine warned, approaching cautiously. Wells could be dangerous, especially for curious young boys. She carefully moved the rotted cover aside and peered down into the darkness. The well appeared deep, but she could see no reflection of water at the bottom. It had likely dried up years ago. "Is there water, Mama?
Can we drink from it?"
"I do not think so, darling," she replied, disappointment settling over her. A working well would have been a tremendous help. As it was, she would have to fetch water from the stream she had spotted about half a mile away. Over the next few days, Katherine worked tirelessly to make the cottage livable. She patched the roof with reeds from the nearby stream, cleared the garden of the worst of the weeds, and scrubbed every surface inside until her fingers were raw. Thomas helped in his way, collecting kindling for fires and exploring every inch of their new property with the unbridled curiosity of childhood. On the fourth day, while Katherine was attempting to fix the door that hung crookedly on its hinges, she heard Thomas calling from the direction of the well. "Mama, the well is talking." Katherine frowned, setting down her tools. "Thomas, what are you saying?" She found him leaning precariously over the edge of the well, his ear tilted toward the opening. "Thomas," she cried, rushing forward and pulling him back. "You must never do that. You could fall in." "But Mama, I heard noises," he insisted, his brown eyes wide with sincerity. "Like someone whispering." "It is just the wind in the stones, love," Katherine said gently, though a shiver ran down her spine. Old wells sometimes make strange sounds. That night, as Katherine sorted through the contents of the old trunk she had found in the corner of the cottage, Thomas sat by the fire, unusually quiet. "What troubles you, my love?" she asked, pausing in her task. "Aunt Eliza knew about the well," he said solemnly. Katherine glanced up sharply. "What makes you say that?" Thomas pointed to the papers she had spread out on the floor. "Her pictures. Look." Katherine had been so focused on finding anything of value among the old clothes and papers that she had overlooked the sketches. Picking up one of the yellowed pages, she studied it more carefully. Indeed, it appeared to be a drawing of the well, rendered with surprising detail. Around the edge of the paper were written words in a spidery hand, too faded to read in the dim firelight. "How strange," Katherine murmured, setting aside the other papers to examine this one more closely. Why would she draw the well? The next morning, Katherine was awakened by the sound of scratching. Opening her eyes, she found Thomas already dressed and on his hands and knees by the hearth. "Thomas, what are you doing?" He looked up, excitement written across his face. "The floor moves, Mama." Katherine sat up, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "What do you mean it moves?" Thomas demonstrated by pushing on one of the large stone slabs that formed the hearth. To Katherine's surprise, it shifted slightly. Fully awake now, Katherine joined him on the floor. Together, they pushed at the stone until it slid aside, revealing a small cavity beneath. Inside was a metal box, green with age. "Treasure," Thomas exclaimed. Katherine carefully lifted the box from its hiding place. It was locked, but the lock was so corroded that it broke when she attempted to open it. Inside was a leather-bound journal and a small pouch. The pouch contained a tarnished key with an unusual design on its head. The journal belonged to her great-aunt Eliza, filled with entries spanning several decades. Katherine read a few pages, struggling to decipher the faded handwriting. Most entries were mundane accounts of daily life, but scattered throughout were references to the secret and what lies below. "What does it say, Mama?" Thomas asked, peering over her shoulder. "I am not certain yet," she replied. "I think Great-Aunt Eliza had a secret, and it might have something to do with the well." That afternoon, while Thomas napped, exhausted from the morning's excitement, Katherine returned to the well with the journal. She sat on the edge, flipping through the pages more carefully, searching for any clear reference to what might be hidden here. Near the back of the journal, she found a page where Eliza had drawn a diagram of the well, with measurements and notes. One line caught Katherine's attention. 3 stones down, where the moss grows thick, turn the eye to face the rising sun. Katherine studied the well's exterior. 3 stones down from the top, on the eastern side, she found a stone covered with thick moss. Brushing it away revealed a small carved indentation and eye. Heart pounding, she pushed at the stone. It did not move. Then she remembered Eliza's words and tried turning it instead. The stone rotated in its setting, a grinding sound accompanying the movement. When the carved eye faced east, toward where the sun would rise, There was a loud click from within the well. Katherine leaned over, peering down. Something had changed. A section of the well wall, about halfway down, now protruded slightly, forming a narrow ledge. She hesitated, considering her options. It was too dangerous to climb down without knowing what awaited. She needed a way to explore further. The next morning, Katherine walked to the nearest village, leaving Thomas with strict instructions not to go near the well. She returned with a length of sturdy rope purchased with a few coins she had left. "Are we going fishing, Mama?" Thomas asked when he saw the rope. "Not exactly," Katherine said with a small smile. "I think we are going treasure hunting." She tied one end of the rope securely to a tree near the well and the other end around her waist. The descent would be dangerous, but her curiosity had been thoroughly ignited by Eliza's journal and the mysterious mechanism in the well. "Thomas, I need you to be very brave and very good," she said, kneeling to look him in the eye. "I am going to climb down into the well to see what Great-Aunt Eliza hid there. You must stay right here and call to me if anything happens."
Can you do that?
Thomas nodded solemnly, his eyes wide with importance. Katherine lowered herself carefully into the well, using the rope to control her descent. The stones were slippery with moss, but she found footholds where she could. The protruding ledge she had spotted from above was about 20 feet down. As she reached it, she saw that it was not merely a ledge but an opening, a small tunnel leading away from the main shaft of the well. Clinging to the rope with one hand, Katherine fumbled in her pocket for the flint and small candle she had brought. Once lit, the candle revealed that the tunnel extended several feet into darkness. "Mama, are you all right?" Thomas called from above. "Yes, love," she called back, her voice echoing in the confined space. "I have found something. A tunnel." Taking a deep breath, Katherine squeezed into the opening. The tunnel was barely wide enough for her shoulders, and she had to crouch to avoid hitting her head. She moved forward slowly, holding the candle before her. After about 10 feet, the tunnel opened into a small chamber carved from the earth and reinforced with wooden beams. Katherine held her candle higher, illuminating the space.
What she saw made her gasp.
The chamber contained a large wooden chest, its brass fittings tarnished, but intact. Beside it stood a smaller metal box and several rolled documents tied with faded ribbons. On the wall hung a tapestry, its colors dulled with age, but still showing the crest of a noble house Katherine did not recognize. With trembling hands, she tried to open the chest, but it was locked. Remembering the key from the metal box they had found beneath the hearthstone, she retrieved it from her pocket. The key slid into the lock and turned with a satisfying click. Inside the chest were objects wrapped carefully in oilcloth. Katherine unwrapped the first to reveal a silver goblet encrusted with gemstones. The second contained a small golden statue of a woman holding scales. The third revealed a pouch heavy with coins, gold coins, bearing the likeness of a king long dead.
"Mama?"
"What did you find?" Thomas called, his voice seeming very far away. "Something wonderful, Thomas," she called back, her voice unsteady with emotion. "Something that will change our lives." Katherine carefully rewrapped the treasures and placed them back in the chest. It was too heavy to move on her own, and she would need to make multiple trips to retrieve everything. For now, she took only one gold coin and one of the rolled documents before making her way back through the tunnel to the rope. The climb up was more difficult than the descent, but adrenaline gave her strength. Thomas's face, peering over the edge, gave her the final push she needed to reach the top. "Did you find treasure, Mama?" he asked as she collapsed on the grass beside the well, breathing heavily. In answer, she held out the gold coin, watching his eyes widen in wonder. That evening, by the light of their small fire, Katherine unrolled the document she had brought up from the chamber. It was a letter, dated nearly 50 years earlier, addressed to her great-aunt Eliza. "My dearest Eliza, if you are reading this, then I am long gone, and you have discovered my secret. The treasures I have entrusted to your keeping are not merely valuable, they are dangerous. They belong to the Duke of Westmoreland, stolen by his steward Adrian Quinn during the riots of 1521. Adrian was my father. He did not steal them out of greed, but because he discovered the Duke's treachery. The documents included with these treasures prove that the Duke committed treason against the crown. My father fled with this evidence and these valuables to prevent the Duke from using his wealth to further his treasonous plans. The Duke's men hunt still for these treasures, though they may not know what truly lies with them. Guard them well, and should you need to, use them wisely. Asterisk your loving cousin, Margaret asterisk. Katherine sat back, stunned. She was not merely the inheritor of treasure, but of a dangerous secret, one that had been hidden for over a century. Over the next 3 days, Katherine made multiple trips into the well chamber, bringing up everything she could carry. Besides the chest of valuable objects, she found documents outlining a plot against the old king, sealed letters never delivered to the royal court, and a detailed account of the Duke's crimes written by Adrian Quinn himself. The gold coins alone would be enough to secure a comfortable future for herself and Thomas, but Katherine knew the documents might be worth even more, or might bring danger to their door. Her dilemma was solved for her when, on the 4th day after discovering the chamber, a fine carriage pulled up outside the cottage. From it emerged a well-dressed man of perhaps 40 years, accompanied by 2 servants. "Good day to you, madam," he said, removing his hat as he approached Katherine, who stood protectively in front of Thomas in the doorway of their now-repaired cottage. "I am Lord Richard Westmoreland. I believe you are residing on property that once belonged to Eliza Rose." Katherine's blood ran cold at the name Westmoreland. "I am Katherine Rose, her great-niece and heir," she said cautiously. "This property is mine by law." The man smiled, though it did not reach his eyes. Of course. I would not dispute your claim. I merely wish to inquire if, in your renovation of this charming dwelling, you have perhaps discovered any items that might be of interest to my family? Documents, perhaps, or objects of historical value." Katherine's mind raced. This must be a descendant of the Duke mentioned in the letter, the one whose steward had stolen the treasures and evidence of treason. "I am afraid not, my lord," she said, forcing herself to meet his gaze steadily. "The cottage was quite empty when I arrived, save for some old furniture." Lord Westmoreland's eyes narrowed slightly. "Are you certain? My family has reason to believe that certain family heirlooms may have found their way here many years ago." "Stolen heirlooms, my lord?" Katherine asked innocently. A flash of something dangerous crossed his face. "Misplaced," he corrected smoothly. "During troubled times. I will certainly inform you if I discover anything that might belong to your family," Katherine said. "Though I cannot imagine how such fine objects would come to be in my great-aunt's humble home." Lord Westmoreland studied her face for a moment longer, then nodded and replaced his hat. "I shall call again, perhaps, when you have had more time to settle in. Good day, Mistress Rose." As the carriage pulled away, Katherine's hand shook. The man had not believed her. She was certain of it. And he would return. That night, after Thomas was asleep, Katherine spread the documents from the hidden chamber across the table. The evidence against the old Duke was damning, letters outlining plots against the crown, detailed accounts of bribes paid and received, even a list of conspirators that included names of families still powerful today. No wonder Lord Westmoreland wanted these papers. If they became public, his family's position and wealth might be forfeit, even after all these years. Katherine made her decision. The next morning, she hired a cart from a farmer in the nearby village and packed their belongings, along with the chest and documents from the well. She told Thomas they were going on an adventure to the city, to London, where she would seek audience with a judge or official who could help them. Their journey was long and not without hardship, but Katherine was determined. The gold coins from the chest paid for comfortable lodgings and eventually secured her a meeting with a royal magistrate, to whom she presented Adrian Quinn's evidence and told the full story of its discovery. The magistrate was initially skeptical, but became increasingly grave as he examined the documents. "These are genuine," he said finally, looking up at Katherine with new respect. "And they implicate not only the old Westmoreland family, but several others still in positions of influence. This is a matter for the king's attention. Within a week, Katherine found herself in the unprecedented position of having a private audience with the king himself. She knelt before him, telling her tale simply and honestly, from the inheritance of the seemingly worthless cottage to the discovery in the well and Lord Westmoreland's threatening visit. The king listened in silence, occasionally nodding to his advisors as they examined the documents. When she finished, he spoke. "Mistress Rose, you have done the crown a great service. These papers reveal a conspiracy that has roots still growing in our court today. Lord Westmoreland and several others shall answer for their ancestors' crimes and their own efforts to conceal them." He gestured to a courtier, who stepped forward with a document bearing the royal seal. "In recognition of your service, and as rightful compensation for the danger you faced, we grant you title to the lands surrounding your inherited cottage, expanded tenfold, and a royal pension sufficient to maintain you and your son in comfort for the remainder of your days." Tears filled Katherine's eyes as she accepted the document with trembling hands. "Your Majesty is most generous. I sought only safety for my son and myself. And justice," the king added with a smile. "Never forget that you sought justice as well, when many would have simply taken the gold and remained silent. Such character deserves reward." 3 months later, Katherine stood in the garden of her transformed home. The cottage had been rebuilt and expanded, now a comfortable house with proper glass windows and a sound roof. The garden bloomed with herbs and flowers, and beyond it stretched fields being tilled by hired hands. Thomas ran across the green lawn, laughing as he chased a puppy the king himself had sent as a gift. The well remained, now properly covered and safe, but Katherine had no fear of it anymore. She had commissioned a small stone marker beside it, bearing a simple inscription. Asterisk from depths of despair to heights of hope. From forgotten darkness to light remembered. Asterisk. Lord Westmoreland and 3 other nobles had been stripped of their titles and properties after the evidence came to light. The king, true to his word, had ensured that Katherine and Thomas would never want for anything again. As the setting sun cast golden light across her land, Katherine reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From widowed, destitute peasant to landowner with royal favor, all because of an inheritance that had seemed worthless at first glance. Thomas ran to her, the puppy bounding at his heels. "Mama, come see. I found flowers growing where the old tree fell." Katherine smiled, taking his small hand in hers. "Show me love. There are still wonders to discover here." And together they walked across their land, mother and son, no longer afraid of what tomorrow might bring. The well had given up its secrets, but Katherine knew the greatest treasure had not been the gold or the documents. It had been the chance to build a new life from the ruins of the old, and the strength she had discovered within herself to protect her son and seek justice, no matter the cost. In the years that followed, the story of the peasant woman and the forgotten well became legend in the countryside. Some said the well had been enchanted, others that the ghost of Adrian Quinn himself had guided Katherine to the treasure. Katherine merely smiled at such tales, knowing the truth was both simpler and more profound. Sometimes the most valuable things lie hidden beneath what appears worthless, waiting for someone with the courage to look deeper.